Hello, fellow YouTubers, and welcome back to Power Up Gamers, driven D&D speaking, the disabled DM. And I'm barricaded in my room because I have monsters on the loose in my house. I'll stay eating my oven readies. I got dinosaurs digging through lasagna. I got goblins raiding my garbage. And it's just awful. Oh. But with a bit of help, we'll be able to round up some of these nasty critters. So, before we go out in the field to face off against one of these monsters, I want to talk a little bit about reskinning and homebrewing a monster. Because being forewarned is essential for capturing and fighting these creatures. And a lot of DEMs or GMs like to reskin or homebrew their own stuff. And there's several reasons for this. Three main reasons I can think of. The first reason being perhaps the monster or man or beast are ready for whatever system you're playing in doesn't have exactly what you want. So I can see where someone would reskin another monster to make it into what they want, or they homebrew or the creature they want. The second reason has to do more with players. Some players like to read and study the core books of a system as they're playing or before they play. And they learn a lot, such as monsters' strengths, weaknesses. So sometimes DMs will reskin or homebrew a monster to make it different than what the players may have experienced, both to see the players and characters' reactions, and to keep that player who has studied the core books from having an unfair advantage over other players. But a third reason I see for this is more to do with the feel of your world, and it's more homebrewing certain things of a monster, not particularly the whole monster. For example, you may have a world where dragons are rare. They may be able to travel through different planes, and so you might have to homebrew or reskin some abilities to make them fit. Now, when we talk about reskinning, what is reskinning? A lot of times this is a change in how a monster works, what it looks like. And this is really no right or wrong way to do this, but I found a way that works for me. If it's something that is just flavor or like appearance, and I just reskin appearance and use the same stats as what's in the monster manual, or beast are very the same abilities, etc. But if I go to change something mechanically, this is where it can get into an issue. So first off, you can tack on too much and make the creature too powerful. You can take off too much and make the creature too weak. So what I do is if they have resistance or immunity to something like poison and I wish to change this up, I might just change the immunity type. So instead of being resistant to poison, they might be resistant to fire. Instead of being immune to cold damage, perhaps they're immune to acid damage. And these are simple changes that leaves basically everything else intact. The second way I do reskinning of a monster is in the ability and what they can do. And for this is let's take a troll with regeneration. What if this troll's a big bad brute, and I think he's going to be a fair fight for my players, even without the regeneration. And so what I would do is, okay, the regeneration isn't needed, so let's take that ability off. And then I give him another ability that makes sense. It's perhaps being in a big brute, he has the ability to do an extra attack. Perhaps he has an ability that he can stomp around and it causes those tremors in the earth. So I would add that ability in the place of the regen. I don't give him both. And this keeps it pretty standard to what's in the monster manuals or bestiaries. They have the same number of skills, same number of resistances, immunities, vulnerabilities, etc. But it changes up the monster enough that players don't know what to expect. Now, one problem I have come across with this is in some situations, and players may not necessarily like the changes because as it throws them off guard. They're used to playing with the standard monsters. They know how to handle situations. And when you make changes like this, it can impact the fun of the game. And so, I would suggest this is used sparingly. And if you reskin and say a goblin, and we'll say it's a stone goblin, and you homebrew a stone goblin to work a certain way, then every time the players encounter a stone goblin in the game, it should work the same way. You don't reskin it for each encounter, etc. You make it a consistent thing for your world. Homebrewing is much the same way, except for with homebrewing, you're coming up with basically a new creature. Some examples I've done of this is I have a 9-foot tall killer rabbit that is entirely homebrewed, but I follow basically the same aim stat block that is in the 5th edition D&D Monster Manual, because that's where I have access to, and those monster manuals are where I'm familiar with. So with that being said, let's move over on to a mimic. And I will screen share real quick. It's the 5th edition PDF page for a mimic. And you'll see the pictures kind of cut out because of how I have the page sitting. Now, I don't worry too much about the lore and stuff that's on the side. I'll read through it and kind of have a sense. But what I'm going to mainly deal with is the stat block. Okay. And you'll see, first it has the name of the creature, in this case mimic. It tells you what size. In this case, it's a medium. It tells you what type of creature. It's considered a monstrosity. And it's a shape changer. And then it tells alignment. In this case, it's neutral. That's all fine and good. It then gives you your armor class. That's for natural armor, because that's what a mimic uses. Its average hit points, and what its max hit points could be. Its speed. It gives you its stats such as strength, dex, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. It tells you that it has a +5 on stealth skills. Also, when it's hidden, it has a +5 to a check. It's immune to acid. It can't be knocked prone. It's immune to being knocked prone. It has dark vision of 60 feet and a passive perception of 11. Doesn't have any languages, and it's a CR rating of 2. These are all fine and good for the standard mimic. Now, if I was going to change something like its immunities, I would take off acid and make it immune to something like fire. The first real ability the mimic has is it's a shape changer. It can use its action to polymorph into an object, or back into its true form. Note that according to this stat block, its statistics are the same in each form. However, any equipment it's wearing or carrying isn't transformed, and it reverts back to its true form if it dies. If it is in an object form, it is adhesive and sticks to anything that touches it. A huge or smaller creature or a head to the mimic is also grappled with an escape DC of 13. And ability checks made to escape this grapple have disadvantage. It also has false appearance. While the mimic remains motionless, it is indistinguishable from an ordinary object. Now, this is an inanimate object. They cannot shape change into other creatures. And then it has a skill for apple called Grappler, and that gives it advantage on attack rolls against any creature that has grappled. Other than that, it's pretty standard. Its melee weapon attack axe is called Pseudopod, which has a +5 to hit, and it does 1d8 plus 3 bludgeoning damage. And if the mimic is an object form, the target subjugated to the adhesive trait. It has a bite attack, +5 to hit, 1d8 plus 3 piercing damage, plus us 1d8 acid damage. So this can be a pretty good challenge for lower level characters, such as level 1s up to about level 3. What's interesting about a mimic, and often underused, is the ability to shape change. And a lot of times we see mimics, and they are used as a creature that is pretending to be a treasure chest or a sack that might have some goods in it, to kind of trick the players and the characters into reaching for it. But there's so much that can be done with a mimic that isn't often done. And we'll talk about a few of my favorite ways to use a mimic. So say your adventuring group is sent into some caves to rescue a gem merchant. And in these caves, they come across what appears to be a dead skeleton. And they might go to investigate the skeleton, look over the body. A pretty standard, usually nothing happens. But what if this skeleton is a mimic in disguise? As soon as they reach down to start rummaging through the body, it moves to attack. What if the same party is in a treasure chamber where there's a lot of treasure laying around? Perhaps that coin or that gem they go to pick up is a mimic. Perhaps the sword they go to pick up as a mimic in disguise and turns on them. So there's a lot of favorite things that can be done with this. And I'll discuss one of my favorite encounters I've ever had. I was playing 2nd edition D&D, and we were sent to a very old warehouse to investigate and discover the cause behind a murder. And the body was said to be in this warehouse. So we go in, and we're being all sneaky and making sure that everything seems legit. we find I'm this body that's half eaten. And we investigate it, and we're pondering what's going on and what killed it, because from the look of the room, there wasn't any indication of anything coming in and or out that would have done something like this. Like, there should have been our first clue there was something up, but we were young and naive. So we're looking out this red house, and we're getting ready to leave and see if there's anything outside that could give us clues as to what's going on. And the red house itself starts attacking us. And the DM did an excellent job flavoring this as walls collapsing and tripping cracks in the floor opening up. So we just thought the red house was falling apart. So we managed to try to do our skill checks and get out of there. And we walk out and turn around to look back at the warehouse. And lo and behold, we see this monstrous mouth with fangs. And it was as a mimic. And it shrunk down into more of a manageable size, and we had to fight the mimic. So that was one of the most creative uses I've seen of a mimic that I really enjoyed playing. And so think about these things and how you could use a mimic in your game. Perhaps the wagon attached to your horse is a mimic. Perhaps a statue in the courtyard that you wouldn't even expect is a mimic in disguise. All these things can add kind of that sense of suspense, because when things happen that the players don't expect like that, especially in like a town setting, it keeps them on their toes. And they have to pay attention to everything and everyone around them. So with that being said, let's slam this cage door on the mimic and we'll ship him on out of here. And next time we can round up another critter. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you find it interesting and usable, and it gives you some food for thought on ways you could reskin a monster, homebrew your own, or even change kind of the flavor of a monster without changing its stats. And using it in a way that players won't expect. Because seeing the players' reactions to your story and your combats, your encounters, is kind of the bloodline or blood life of a DM. We enjoy seeing how the characters react to things. And that's what makes the game fun for us. So until next time, may the dice always roll in your favor.